I was reading this article in the Times, and it was sharing that the federal estimates that 1 in 8 Americans are now taking some kind of antidepressant. These numbers are staggering. And even take a listen to this. It says suicide rates have risen by 30% since 2000. Almost a third of US adults now report symptoms of either depression or anxiety, roughly 3 times as many as 2019. And about 1 in 25 adults have a diagnosis like schizophrenia, bipolar, or borderline personality disorder. As of late 2022, just 31% of US adults consider their mental health excellent, down from 43% just 2 decades earlier. Now, one promising thing is that 75% of adults who seek mental health services have reported some benefit to being in treatment. But there is a big number of individuals who believe that mental health treatment has actually made their symptoms worse. If you're someone who has been in therapy before and maybe it didn't work out for you, or you're looking to be in therapy or returning to therapy again after experiences that have not worked out for you, this video is for you. We're going to review 10 of the common reasons why therapy is not working for you. And if you do any of these 10 things, your therapy experience might be a complete waste of your time and money. In order to avoid that, we want to make sure that you follow along to the end of this video to make sure you avoid these 10 mistakes that a lot of our clients make when it comes to seeking out mental health treatment. Well, I want you to listen to each one because in each of these 10, I'm going to give you suggestions on how to improve these issues that you may have in therapy. That way, you have the best chance for success. So let's get started. And my name is Tiffany Smith. I am a licensed professional counselor. Here is where I integrate faith and therapy in a way that helps you, challenges you to grow in your walk with the Lord and in your life overall. Okay, so let's get started. Let's get into number 1. The first common mistake that clients make when it comes to pursuing therapy services is that they have unrealistic expectations of their therapists. Therapists are not gods, we're guides. So we're not there to provide advice. We're not soothsayers, we're not miracle workers, we're not mediums, we're not there to give you quick fixes. Therapy is a lot of work and you have to go into it intentionally and with patience. So it takes quite a bit of time to build rapport, to develop what we call a therapeutic alliance, to get enough information from the client to build and establish trust with them. And then we have to do all this work to just goal set and to create a treatment plan that works for our clients. And many come in expecting something to happen right away. They want quick fixes. And that doesn't really work in therapy. You have to come in motivated, but with realistic expectations about what you can do in a specific time frame. The role of the therapist is to guide, but if you go into therapy expecting that your therapist will do the work for you and that you'll just go to feel good, to be comforted, to find relief without having to really put forth a lot of effort, then you are automatically going to set yourself up for failure. Number 2, oh y'all, this is a hard one, but maybe you're just not ready for therapy. I'm sorry to say it, but not everybody who wants to go to therapy is ready for therapy. And here's why. Therapy challenges you. Therapy is meant to help you think more critically, to break patterns, to teach you how to set boundaries, to communicate effectively. You do have to lean in and be vulnerable. And not everyone is willing to do that or take the time that it takes to actually work on the things that you have to work on in therapy. Therapists are not miracle workers. And a lot of individuals really struggle with the process. They don't like to take direction. They often feel easily offended and misunderstood. Many clients get very frustrated about having to retell their stories, but a lot of times a therapist is just trying to get clarity or to understand so that we can guide you in the best way possible. Yeah, it may be difficult and challenging, but if you're someone who really thrives off of having control, and you know that you have a hard time letting go and letting someone in, therapy may be a real struggle for you unless you're willing to lean in and have a level of willingness to allow your therapy to work the way that it's supposed to work. Number 3, you don't prioritize your therapy. This one frustrates me a little bit. I've got to be honest, because there are a lot of clients who start off with such great momentum and then they just start rescheduling their appointment scheduling, then canceling them, or especially my telehealth clients, right? Sometimes they come into their session and the therapist is ready and has reviewed the notes from the time before. We are ready to review homework, and the client clicks on the computer to sign in and they're in the bed and they're not even sitting upright, and they don't treat it as if they were an in-person session, and they may come in or to the session and they're at the grocery store or in the Chick-fil-A drive-through, and we have to reschedule because they're not prioritizing their treatment. Really, it's important that if you are going to therapy, you prioritize it, you do the homework, you show up on time, you show that you're ready and you are intentional about your therapy. You schedule it at a time where you can dedicate that hour or that 45 minutes to just doing your therapy. You follow through with the assignment. You show your therapist that you are paying attention to the exercises, and that if there's an issue that comes up for you throughout the week, you can document it and you're ready for the therapy as it starts. Number 4, there's no continuity of care. Meaning there are some clients who come into therapy who really need additional resources in addition to their once a week or bi-weekly therapy sessions. Meaning if the therapist makes specific recommendations that you see a psychiatrist, that you see a nurse practitioner, that you make an appointment with your primary care doctor, that you go to an IOP group, you want to lean into the recommendations that your therapy makes. And again, it's collaborative effort. So if maybe what they're recommending or what I'm recommending isn't working for you, let the therapist know so they can make some adjustments in a way that works for you and helps you to continue to make the progress that you really want to see in your therapy session. But we always want to choose the path of least resistance, but that isn't always going to help you. Feeling uncomfortable with the process does not mean that you shouldn't do it. And a lot of times fear or discomfort, maybe even shame or embarrassment that we need more than we were anticipating, may make us want to shrink back and quit therapy. But you have to accept that sometimes therapy will reveal to you that you need maybe more than you're anticipating. Lean into it and discuss your discomfort with your therapist. Discuss your fear and your anxiety about needing more treatment, and work through the shame, the guilt, the sadness about not being where you think you should be. But don't resist. Don't give up or quit therapy just because you came up against a wall. It's uncomfortable, it's meant to be, but follow the suggestions because they're there for a reason and they're meant to help you grow. That goes into number 5. People quit before they even get started. Therapy is not meant to be comfortable. If you quit every time you come up against something that makes you feel uncomfortable, then you're not ready for therapy. This also goes back to setting realistic expectations about the outcome of therapy. There's so many individuals that I have had over the years of being a therapist who started off really great, but then when we hit some very sensitive parts for them, they quit. They're like, oh no, I'm not ready for this. And a good therapist can sometimes know. Sometimes we know when we're touching on some things that make our clients feel really uncomfortable, but it's important that you lean into it and not quit. And also let your therapist know when maybe we're moving too fast and we need to slow down and really work with you on some things that you find quite challenging, and maybe we need to take baby steps on moving forward to help you continue to grow without giving up. Number 6, you have the wrong therapist for your needs. Not all therapy is created equal, and each therapist comes with a very specific niche and a skill set that they do really, really well. And even if you really have a great therapist and you really like them and you connect with them, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're equipped or have the proper tools to help you with some of the situations that you are struggling with. For example, complex trauma is not something that I typically work with all the time. It's not that I can't, but I'm not as comfortable with that as I am with clients who have issues with identity or even substance abuse. That is something that I know really well. But there are therapists that really do well with that. And even though I have a very strong ability to develop rapport with my clients, sometimes I can tell right away that they need a therapist who has the training and the time and the expertise to work with them through trauma. So it may take a little bit of time for you to find a therapist who's the right fit. And one of the other things that I would encourage you to do is that even if you like your therapist or if you don't, have a conversation with them about what your needs are and let them know, hey, listen, is this something that you really believe that you can do? Because I'm open to having that conversation with you. And maybe if not, if you have a referral or some recommendations for a therapist or suggestions on where I could find one, or maybe some platforms that I can look into, that way I can continue to work on these things with a different counselor if it's not something that you work with. I have even had clients who have stayed with me for individual therapy, but I have referred them to groups or support groups or other things outside of individual therapy to work on specific things that they need that I just don't have the tools for. And don't be afraid to share that with your therapist. Don't be a people pleaser. You're not here for that. You're not there to make us feel good. We need to know what's working for you and what isn't so that your care is not interrupted. Number 7, you can't get over thinking you were forced to do therapy. Now listen to this. There are many individuals who are only going to therapy to keep a relationship for their spouse because they're court mandated, whatever the reason. That doesn't necessarily deter you from growing in therapy. Some of my best clients, some of my favorite clients that I worked with did not initially come into therapy on their own volition. They came because of courts, they came because of their spouse, a friend, or it was mandated for them to do therapy. Some of those clients ended up being some of my best and had the best outcomes in therapy. So if you have a situation where you feel forced to be in therapy, don't let that deter you from being open because the outcome is really up to you. I remember having a husband at one point who came in and felt forced to be there because of his wife and to keep his marriage. It was at that last hour, and if he did not do therapy, she was leaving. And he gave her such a hard way to go about being in therapy that when he actually was doing very well, she didn't believe him. And that became very frustrating for him that he felt forced to come. He came, he started to do really well in therapy, and then his wife didn't believe that he was actually being genuine, and he was excellent as a client. So don't let the reason you come into therapy make you feel like your success in therapy has now been diminished. You can do as well as you intend to do when you start. Number 8, you're not being open and honest with your therapist. Therapists can't do what we don't. We're only going to act and respond based on the information that you give us. Again, we are not gods, we're guides. So the only way that we know where we're going is based on the information provided for us from our clients. The clients have to be open and honest with us. So share, be vulnerable, be open. And even if you're struggling with your openness in therapy, tell that to your therapist. Tell them, I struggle with being open. I struggle with being transparent. And know that if you don't open up to your therapist, if you can't find it within you to talk and to be open, there's not really much a therapist can do. We are only going to be able to serve you based on what information we have. So if we have little information, we have little to give you. Also, the other part to that is being open with your therapist when they're trying to do something for you that's not working. If there is a certain tool, whether it's cognitive behavioral therapy and they give you homework to do a thought record or some narrative therapy or emotionally focused therapy or positive psychology or the Gottman method, whatever technique, modality, tool a therapy has in their resource toolbox that they're using, if you are like, I am not connecting to this, but I don't want to make my therapist feel bad, don't do that. Therapists are not there because we're not there for our own ego. We are there to serve and collaborate with our clients. And really good therapists will check in with you and say, does this work? Is this working? Did you find that resource useful? Do you want to pivot? Do you prefer an activity, maybe a TED Talk, maybe some kind of activity instead of what I gave you? Because if that's not working for you, we need to know so that we can make some changes. I think one of the worst things that can happen is that months after we've done therapy with the client, we find out that there's another diagnosis, there's another issue, there's a big part of their story that they left out. And then by the time they tell us they're in crisis, or we have to refer them out, or we feel really bad that all of this time we could have been working on something completely different, especially when the therapist has the equipment to do it, but they just didn't know. I think even the best therapists really struggle with that when we thought we had it, when we thought the client was being honest, and even when we have the best discernment and we can read a room. If a client is withholding willfully, there's nothing we can do about that, and it's only going to hurt you and your treatment outcomes. Number 10, last but definitely not least, you idealize your own story. Sometimes things that we've experienced, trauma, rejection, embarrassment, shame, maybe we've made some really critical mistakes that have impacted our life, and we have let those things become our identity. Things that you've gone through, no matter how traumatic, they may shape us, right? They may influence how we live our lives. They may influence how we show up in relationships. But we don't have to be powerless over making changes when those things happen. But when we come into therapy, oftentimes we just want the therapist to validate what we've experienced, but we don't want those things challenged, and we don't want to, or we're not ready to change those things. That could hinder your growth in therapy, and it can make you feel really frustrated that you've been in the therapy for a year, but when the therapist is making suggestions, you're not practicing those things outside of therapy, and then you realize that I'm at my 4th therapist and I'm still talking about these things, and I don't know what to do to change it. A therapist can only do but so much. We provide the tool. You have to be intentional about creating new narratives and working with your therapist. Sometimes that may mean when you come up against some resistance because your body and your mind and your nervous system is telling you to hold on tight to these stories, but somehow or another, we have to bury these old stories that we tell ourselves, or the idea or the perspective that we are powerless to change those things. That is a responsibility that you're going to have when you go into therapy, that your therapist is not going to be able to do for you. Okay, so those were my 10 things that I hope help you to have better success in therapy. Manage your expectations, and I want you to lean in and be honest about therapy with your therapist. Be vocal. Don't feel like you have to please them and you're there to please them. You're not there to please your therapist. Work on these issues with your counselor. Make sure that you find a good therapist, and I'm going to do a video on that, how to know that you have a good therapist. I want you to take responsibility though for your own treatment and lean into it so that you have the best outcome possible. And I hope that you listen to this to the end. I want you to like, subscribe, and if you find that there are challenges that you are having in your therapy, please comment below and leave me some information so that we can possibly talk about some of those things in future videos to help you to find your therapy process more successful. All right, I pray that this was helpful for you, and we'll see you the next time. Take care.